Hello, here's your EGP, your practice on lesson 10.1. And today we're working on estimating sums and differences of decimals and finding the exact values. So we're going to start with the addition problem, 34 hundredths plus 5 tenths. Picture those values in your head. When you add those together, would you estimate that your sum would be greater than 1/2? Or less than 1/2. Here's how I think about it. If I have 34 hundredths plus 5 tenths, I know 5 tenths is already 1/2. So if I'm adding 34 hundredths onto that, I'm going to have something greater than 1/2. Now, find the exact sum. When you add decimals, remember the most important part is to recopy the decimals vertically so your decimal points are lined up. In other words, those decimal points are stacked right on top of each other. Now I'm ready to add. Now for addition, if I would like, I could place a 0 in the hundredths column to the right of my 5 tenths. That wouldn't change the value, so I think I'll do that. 4 hundredths plus 0 hundredths would be 4 hundredths. 3 tenths plus 5 tenths would be 8 tenths. I need to put my decimal point straight underneath where it is in my add-ins. 0 ones plus 0 ones would be 0 ones. 84 hundredths is my sum. Notice that matches my estimate of greater than 1/2. Here's your second problem. Find the estimate of the sum for 47 hundredths plus 59 hundredths. You have two choices. Would that sum be greater than 1 or less than 1? If I'm estimating this sum, I'm going to look at this add-in first. 59 hundredths, well, I know 50 hundredths is greater than 1/2 because, 59 hundredths is greater than 1/2 because 50 hundredths is 1/2. 47 hundredths is almost 1/2. It's just 3 little hundredths away from 1/2. When I combine these two, I'm going to get something that is greater than 1 whole, because this is almost 1/2 and this is 9 hundredths more than 1/2, right? So greater than 1 whole would be my estimate. Now go ahead and find the sum, the exact sum of 47 hundredths plus 59 hundredths. To find the sum, of course, remember first you need to recopy the decimals so that they are stacked. That means the decimal points need to be right above each other in the problem. Now I can go ahead and add. I have 7 hundredths plus 9 hundredths. That would be 16 hundredths. That's the same as having 6 hundredths. And that 10 hundredths is the same as having 1 tenth. Now I have 1 tenth plus 4 tenths, that's 5 tenths, plus 5 more tenths. Now I have 10 tenths. 10 tenths is the same as having 0 tenths and 1 whole. I need my decimal point right below in my sum. 1 plus 0, that would be 1. So our exact sum is 1 and 6 hundredths. You can see that's just a little bit more than 1, greater than 1, and matches our estimate. Okay, so estimate the sum for 8 and 3 hundredths plus 1 and 5 thousandths. For this one, it will work well if you round these add-ins to the nearest whole or nearest 1. Here's how I would do the estimate for this addition problem. If I round 8 and 3 hundredths to the nearest whole, here's the ones column. If I'm looking to the right, I'm rounding to the lower one, right? This is more than 8 ones, but less than 9 ones, so I'm going to the lower one, which is 8 ones. If I round 1 and 5 thousandths to the nearest 1, well, this number is somewhere between 1 and 2. Here's the ones column. If I look to the right, I'm going to the lower 1. So 1. All right, so 8 plus 1. My estimate is this will be about 9. Now, go ahead and find the exact sum of 8 300ths plus 1 5,000ths. Okay, of course we know when we're adding and subtracting decimals, we have to make sure those decimal points get recopied so they are stacked right on top of each other, like so. Now, if you'd like, before you start, you could put a 0 to the right of the 300ths in that top add-in. That's fine. And let's go ahead and add, starting in the thousandths column. 0 thousandths plus 5 thousandths is 5 thousandths. 300ths plus 0 hundredths is 3 hundredths. 0 tenths plus 0 tenths is 0 tenths. 8 plus 1, that would be 9. Our exact answer is 9 35 thousandths. That's just a little bit more than our estimate of 9, so that works out well. Now let's try some subtraction problems. Go ahead and estimate the difference between 86 hundredths and 4 tenths, and you have two choices. Would that difference be greater than 1/2 or less than 1/2? If I'm estimating this, here's what I'm going to think. I'm starting with 86 hundredths. Now, I know that 50 hundredths, that is 1/2, right? So if I have 86 hundredths and I'm taking away 4 tenths, that's like taking away 40 hundredths, right? If I take 40 hundredths away from 86 hundredths, that's going to put me below 50 hundredths, right? I'm going to get something that's less than 1/2. Now go ahead and find the exact difference. All right, we know the most important thing when we're adding and subtracting decimals is that we must line up those decimal points. When we line up those decimal points, it lines up all the other place value columns. Here's what that would look like. Now, you can put a 0 to the right of the 4 tenths in that subtrahend if you'd like. 6 hundredths minus 0 hundredths would be 6 hundredths. 8 tenths, take away 4 tenths would be 4 tenths. I need my decimal point straight below. 0 ones, take away 0 ones. That would be 0 ones. My exact answer is 46 hundredths. You can see that's just a little less than 1/2. It's just a little less than 50 hundredths, which is equal to 1/2. All right, try this one. What is your estimate for 3 6 tenths minus 48 hundredths? On this one, there are a couple different ways you could approach this. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking 48 hundredths, that's almost 50 hundredths, right? That's almost 1/2, right? If I have 3 6 tenths, 3 5 tenths would be 1/2, 3 1/2, right? This is kind of pretty close to 3 5 tenths minus another 5 tenths, okay? So a good estimate for this would be, oh, that's going to be about 3. Now, if you prefer, you could also estimate by rounding these to the nearest whole. So 3 6 tenths rounded to the nearest 1, that would be 4. 48 hundredths rounded to the nearest 1, well, we're going to have to round down to 0 on that one, right? 4 minus 0, that'd be 4. That's a good estimate too. I think this one would be a little bit closer, but our exact answer is going to be somewhere in this range between 3 and 4. Go ahead and find the exact difference. What is the exact difference between 3 6 tenths and 48 hundredths? Okay, so we know we need to recopy these numbers so the decimal points get lined up. That's super important. Now I have my decimal points lined up. I am going to need this time, I have to this time, put a 0 to the right of the 6 tenths in my minuend, my top number. Here's why. I have 0 hundredths and I'm trying to take away 8 hundredths. I don't have enough hundredths, right? Where am I going to get more hundredths? you're right. I'm going to get more hundreds from that tenths column. I have 6 tenths. I'm going to take one of those tenths. That will leave me with 5 tenths. The 1/10 I took is equal to 10 hundredths. 10 hundredths take away 8 hundredths would be 2 hundredths. 5 tenths take away 4 tenths would be 1/10. 3 ones take away 0 ones would be 3 ones. Notice our exact answer, 3 and 12 hundredths. That's in that 3 to 4 range, right? Our estimates, both of our estimates were good ones. Notice is a little bit closer to the 3. Okay, let's try one more. What would your estimate be for 5 minus 4 hundredths? I would suggest picturing 5 grids totally shaded in, and then picturing taking off 4 of those hundredths. Here's my estimate. If I have 5 holes and I just take off 4 of those teeny little hundredth squares, but I've barely taken anything off at all off of one of those holes, right? 4 hundredths is not much, right? This is really just it's gonna be really close to 5. All right, I've barely taken anything off by taking off 4 hundredths. All right, so my estimate is 5. Now, go ahead and find the exact value. Okay, now you might be thinking, hey, I know the most important thing is to recopy the numbers so the decimal points lined up, but I don't see a decimal point on 5. Where is it? Well, we always can know that the decimal point, even if we can't see it, is always to the right of the ones column. So if 5 is in the ones column, there's a decimal point just to the right of it. And then we're subtracting 4 hundredths. Notice how I've got my decimal points stacked right on top of each other. Now, before I do any subtracting, I need to put zeros in the tenths column and the hundredths column to the right of my 5. And here's why. We're going to start over here in the hundredths column. We have 0 hundredths, take away 4 hundredths. Yeah, I don't have enough hundredths, do I? I can't get any from the tenths. I'm going to have to go all the way over to the ones column. I have 5 ones. I'm going to take one of those ones. Now I have 4 ones. The 1 that I took is equal to 10 tenths. But remember, I still need some hundredths. So I'm going to take one of those tenths. That will leave me with 9 tenths left. The 1/10 I took, that's equal to 10 hundredths. Now I can do some subtracting. 10 hundredths take away 4 hundredths is 6 hundredths. 9 tenths take away 0 tenths is 9 tenths. 4 ones take away 0 ones is 4. Here's our exact answer, 4 and 96 hundredths. Can you see how that's almost 5? We're really close to the whole number 5. Our estimate is really close, isn't it? Okay, that is the end of your EGP for today. Nice work.